Welcome to the DAO Factor. I'm your host, Lisa Yu. I'm a crypto and tech investor, entrepreneur, and speaker. I got into crypto in 2017 when I took rental payments in Ethereum, and since then have invested and advised dozens of companies in tech and in Web3. For those who are new to DAOs, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization that's taking the world by storm. Today, I'm super excited to introduce to you our guest, Nico Fara, founder of FashionDAO, a group of Web3 fashion experts looking to support the adoption of Web3 tech in the industry and collaboration and co-creation amongst the community. Their mission is to create an organic community and to unlock potential as they come together to bring fashion into Web3. First off, Nico, thank you for joining the podcast. What are you the most passionate about and what motivates you to wake up every day?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I'm actually very passionate about empowering others to unlock their potentials, like you mentioned. So in the form of DAO or just on a day-to-day basis, if, I'm doing that by hiring, amazing talents, especially women and minorities, to, just my friends and family, empowering them and uplifting them.
Amazing. I love that. You're like in service of others. And what inspired you to start FashionDAO in the first place?
So I'm a Metaverse creator and technologist. And as I was building these beautiful, aesthetically pleasing environments, like you see behind me, for fashion retailers and brands, I organically created a community on Twitter by hosting Twitter spaces, educating and onboarding a lot of digital fashion designers and fashion experts and enthusiasts into Web3. And I realized that, this amazing community has a lot of potentials. And, what's better than putting this into a structure, a Web3 structure that could, take this to another level. Twitter is great, but it's not enough. So we wanted to continue this collaboration, co-creations offline and give it some structure.
I love that. And tell me more about like your experience in building these metaverse experiences, right? Like, I know that a lot of people are interested in the metaverse. So in your words, can you explain what it is and your involvement in this world?
Sure. So there's so many definitions of metaverse. The way I look at it is more an enhanced version of the internet as we know of. So rather than experiencing it in a 2D version, and now we will be able to do it more 3D and immersive. So kind of best of both worlds. You still have the convenience of being on the internet at the comfort of your home or office, but at the same time, you will have the immersive experience and feel of being in the physical location with others. And we all crave the human connection. And as our lives are getting busier and more automated, we need a better, more efficient type of connection as well. So in terms of like retailers and brands, we are empowering them to create a metaverse presence. A lot of times this creation of metaverse presence is not as easy. You need to hire a lot of different types of developers and experts. And you also need to be very clear on what type of adoption you want to take. So we help with all of those from the beginning, strategy, understanding the why, to all the way from creating and designing these environments to educating their end users and customers to be onboarded to these environments.
As you're building FashionDAO, what are some of the values and core tenets of your DAO?
Sure. Values are very important because all DAOs are basically just a group of people that come together and they share same values and purposes. What we did is, I basically started by just telling the story of like what I think this community can do, and then organically attracted a lot of amazing folks. And then when we had this community, we pulled from them what they think those values are, what they have in common. And we also wanted to understand like how do they prioritize these values? Because as we are early in this DAO space, there are times that we have to kind of prioritize or compromise on certain aspects of our values. just because the toolings are not perfect, the partnerships are not great, people are still figuring it out. So through that poll, we realized that transparency, diversity and inclusion, and accountability are the top three values for our community. And from those, we are actually figuring a lot of things out, from like what our brand persona is, who are we targeting at this point, who are we partnering, what type of tools are we choosing. So these values really set the tone for everything we do.
Got it. I love that. It's so important to have that core set of values, especially as a DAO. You know, it's a decentralized organization, so there's a reason to gather. There's not just the interests, but the values have to both align. I've spoken about this at many events where, you know, it's that conversion of interests and values, and that really strengthens the bonds of the community.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And what's your background in fashion? How did you know that this was going to work? Like, what gaps did you see in the industry, and, you know, how are you looking to solve it?
Sure. So I have been a fashion lover all my life, even though I was an engineer. And it doesn't seem like, you know, as engineers, you can dress up as much. So when I started my own companies, I basically focused a lot into using my tech backgrounds and connections to solve for challenges in the fashion industry. And as you know, one of the biggest challenges is the return. And with returns kind of harming the planet, for me, this was a big deal. I'm a vegan and, you know, very caring about the environment and my impact. Since then, I basically started working on tools, software solutions that could solve for returns. Not only they're, you know, causing harm for the planet, they're just very disturbing for everyone to begin with, very inefficient. Yeah, I've been building virtual try-on solutions, size recommendation, style recommendation. Through those building processes, I also educated myself. You know, I became a stylist, certified stylist. I did everything I could to get myself familiar with those type of industries, and then kind of building connections and trying to hear from those actual retailers and fashion consumers what they really want to see. And, you know, those really helped us to also, as these retailers and brands were looking into virtual stores and more immersive experiences with the pandemic, that we actually kind of realized that we have to also step into the metaverse. And that's how I got to build what we are building, because I realized a lot of these metaverse creators at the time were not really looking into these industries, and they were building it mostly for a different target audience. And also, I think it comes from our subconscious biases. A lot of these creators being from a certain demographic, they didn't necessarily have the same of interest or understanding of what fashion consumers or brands want to see. So that's how we realized that it has to really feel real. It has to be beautiful. It has to, you know, be appealing to this audience. And also it has to be very seamless and frictionless. Otherwise, you know, people will not really use it. So that's kind of like how we are creating these environments that Web3 or these new technologies are not even being seen. They're in the background. You're just experiencing the results and, you know, just an enhanced experience for the user, rather than the tool being shown as the first step.
I love that you were able to marry your experience in tech and your passion for sustainability and your interest in passion and create this entire experience. I actually spoke about this at an NFT conference. I did a talk about the metaverse and how it would disrupt e-commerce, and precisely what you talked about, like the returns back and forth is very damaging for the environment. You're paying shipping costs twice, and the user doesn't get the item. So you just wasted 2 rounds of shipping and didn't get what you wanted. So that, to me, is a really big problem, you know, for the planet. And so, yes, I love the whole virtual trying on clothes in a virtual environment. You have your avatar that's sized to your proportions, so you know it fits. And you can see how it looks in a forest in the daytime, in the nighttime, right? If you're trying on a swimsuit, you can just change your background to a pool to see how you'll look at in the actual environment that you'll wear the piece of clothing in. So I think this is just the future of shopping. And I'm so excited that you're able to bring your skills, your expertise, and your interests all together. And that sounds so fun that you get to run this DAO.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of people think like there's free shipping, like, it's never free.
Not free. It's not free to the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's going to come back to us. It's going to come back to us, anything negative that we are doing to the environment. And there are also like other people that are in this chain being impacted by this. So the other aspects of like, I see Web3 can really help fashion industry in addition to like general supply chain, like sustainability. It's also supply chain transparency. We have a lot of that challenge within fashion industry, the labor, child labor, and all those things that we see in Southeast Asia. So it's very important to like use these blockchain technologies, provide more transparency to our audience, and just inform them into what's happening and build more trust, and also collaborate and co-create with the users. We no longer have to see them as a consumer only. We can also have them kind of generate ideas with us, tell us what they're looking for. That's another way we can bring efficiency into the fashion industry, rather than just mass producing a lot of products that may or may not be sold and have to kind of dump them into landfills again.
That's really thoughtful that you're thinking on behalf of the whole industry, how you can improve it. So this is a question that I asked all the women leaders. As a woman in Web3, what challenges have you faced, and how do you plan to empower the next generation of women getting into Web3?
Absolutely. I actually started my entrepreneurship journey because I realized there is not enough voice for women in tech, and I was being discriminated and sometimes harassed just because I was the only female engineer. And so I wanted to change this. I wanted to change the narrative. I wanted to change the industry, and wanted to start my own companies to be able to empower other women to not experience what I experienced. So that was the goal. And the other challenges that I realized after starting my own company was, again, getting discriminated for fundraising situations, or sometimes like, partnership opportunities. Again, being a woman, woman of color, or an immigrant, it wasn't so helpful in those situations. And obviously it needs to change, and I'm working hard to change this, but it's not an easy path. In order to break this glass ceiling, we have to, pave the path for others. We have to go through a lot of ups and downs, and I'm experiencing that every day, and I'm working hard to push away these boundaries. And hopefully one day I will be sitting on the other side of the table and be able to provide these opportunities for other women like myself.
Yeah. Well, you're taking the step like of courage to be the example, to start the company, to start the DAO, to lead the movement. And, that's super inspiring to hear that, rather than getting knocked down multiple times. I think, we could go on about, my personal journey is very similar to yours. We experience discrimination, especially in fundraising, right? Like less than 3% of venture capital goes to women. And we have to keep kind of fighting for the seat at the table. So it is an uphill battle sometimes, but, that's not going to deter us or make us give up. Like, if anything, it makes us try harder. It makes us work harder. And because we're inspired not to climb to the top ourselves, but so that we can open the doors for other women as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is not an easy path, but
I know, exactly. I feel you, and I completely understand. And I'm here to support you too.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm an immigrant, so I have gone through so many challenges just, getting where I am. moved to the US 8 years ago because I wanted to change the narrative, my destiny, and
Yeah.
again, pave the path for others to make it easier for others to be able to grow their potentials and unlock their potentials. But yeah, this is not new to me. So I keep
Yeah.
doing this until I have enough women that could be doing the same.
Yes, for sure. And what do you think is the heart of building community, behind, like beyond like the DAO and the structure, and we'll explain more, of what are the benefits of creating a DAO and raising money for the DAO. But beyond all of that, it's all about the people and the genuine connections that we build with the tribe that we formed. And so kind of what do you think is the kind of the secret sauce, like the heart behind building the community, especially the one that you've built?
Yeah, I think communication and transparency are the core of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my motivations, other than just seeing the potential of this community, was the fact that other DAOs in this space were not doing great. And I was hearing a lot of complaints from especially like fashion designers and creators that the existing DAOs in this space were not as transparent with them. They were not as decentralized and communicating. So those became, again, my motivation to want to do something about it, because most people just complain.
Yeah. You're like, let's take action.
Yes. And even though I was, running two businesses in Web3 at the time and was kind of like overwhelmed like everybody else in the space, I was like, this is a great timing for this industry and we have to do something about it. And I have to lead this to bring people together, and hopefully others will join to kind of help. And that's pretty much what happened. I initiated this and told this story to so many people until, people realized the importance of it and got behind it. I'm so amazed and surprised by the amount of support I've received since then. A lot of folks that I didn't think that they're coming from the fashion or would have, necessarily passion or commitment for this, they actually turned out to be one of, or many of our biggest supporters and contributors. So it's just really, really kind of fulfilling and rewarding to see what people can do when they come together. And this is real power of the community. And we have not, I wouldn't necessarily call ourselves just a community anymore. This is more like a family. We actually bonded so much that we really personally know each other. Many of us, we hang out, offline, and know each other as like friends and family. So this is really empowering just in just a few months.
Yeah. And when did you launch the DAO?
3 months ago, I would say, or maybe a little bit.
Oh, wow. That's very recent. I've already seen you everywhere, from NFT NYC. Two of my other friends told me about you, which is why we're on the call today.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just, shows you how amazing this community is.
Definitely. Well, I know some of the listeners want to learn more about the DAO and how it's structured and what are the benefits of running a DAO. So can you share kind of some of your experience of how it's structured? What are some key benefits for DAO members, etc.?
Sure. So DAOs are quite early in their lifetime. So it's kind of like a year ago when we were with NFTs. A lot of things are being figured out. A lot of tools are being developed to make things more efficient and more decentralized. During this transition that we are in, people have very different definitions, and they see it very differently. The way we see the FashionDAO is more of a supporting organization for the Web3 fashion community. We are not necessarily looking so much purely on the financial side of things, unlike many other DAOs that are very much focused into putting money together to buy a project, to buy certain assets. We're not necessarily like that. We see this overall community as, kind of like a CFDA for the metaverse.
Yeah.
and so much more. So it could be some sort of like a community where you come to network, find others to collaborate and co-create with. It's also supporting in a sense that it empowers these individual members in terms of like personal and professional development. So we care about their mental health, physical health. We do all those sort of things that will lead to empowerment of these members to be more successful in their journey. And then we also see it as even some sort of regulatory agency where we are using these amazing technologies, and let's say we're doing the supply chain transparency, that we cannot expect the end user to necessarily read all the smart contracts to verify something is sustainable. How can we make that more efficient? How can we be a reliable source for them to validate this type of information? To even having like some sort of incubator where we can empower some of these projects. So there's so many different directions that
Like a fashion incubator.
Yes.
End to end, like from design to execution to supply chain distribution.
Everything. As I said earlier, like we have folks from tech and finance to traditional fashion design to photography, like all aspects of things. So that synergy that we are creating is just like no other thing. And yeah, the other thing is like I don't believe into creating like a pure very clear roadmap for a DAO, because I wouldn't call that a DAO anymore. Because the community is constantly evolving and new members are being added and their opinions are matter so much, maybe as much as others. So I want this to be open-ended and flexible to the needs and wants of the community. So that's why we look at our goals and objectives in like quarterly format. So within our different committees that we have, we define OKRTs and we go through those every quarter to make sure we're on track, we're accomplishing what we wanted to, but we don't necessarily like set a 5 to 10 years plan when our community is still evolving.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
I feel like our culture is shifting from this like selfie culture of, like solo brands to more of a collaborative culture. And I really think that's the heart of Web3, right? Like, how do we collaborate together? How do we decentralize ownership, have, value co-creation where everyone has a voice, everyone has a vote?
Absolutely. And I believe like this is gonna take the fashion industry to the whole other level. Because for so long, we were just limited to these specific, fashion houses and brands creating on their own.
Yes.
And being very secretive about it.
Wow, you're right.
Right?
So fashion houses working in a silo, and Web3 is completely disrupting that in a decentralized fashion.
Yeah. And this is just, where the magic is going to happen. This is where you are empowering those indie designers and brands to come to this, world and be so empowered. In addition, you have these traditional fashion houses now getting into Web3. Now, all of these kind of collaborating and co-creating, it's going to bring so much more value, so much more diversity and versatility to this industry.
Yes, I love it. I love this.
Yeah.
Well, what are your long-term goals for the DAO? Now it's been 3 months, you got started, you already have, a good number of people join. What are you looking to do in the future? Like, do you envision like fashion shows and runways in the metaverse? Are you looking to have like a decentralized fashion house? What are some of the fun goals that you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, honestly, I would say it's not my choice because
yes,
it's decentralized. But some of those examples that I mentioned, like the incubator, the regulation side of things, to even like, again, tools and, areas where we can empower these members and their businesses.
yes.
So Metaverse being one very clear way of, displaying and showcasing their work. And, we did our first IRL event just before NFT NYC. many ways like this that we could uplift this community and give them, the attention that they deserve and having their voices heard. I think it's very much aligned with our values and goals. And yeah, we'll see where the community wants to take this.
I love it. In true decentralized fashion, you're like, well, the group will vote and we will decide as a collective.
Yes, as long as you attract the, good value people, then you can really sit back and just enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I love that. And we're all on this journey together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm super curious, what's your inspiration? Like, what were some of your fashion icons growing up? And who are you following now? Who should we be kind of looking to, like up and coming fashion designers and artists?
Honestly, I'm just following our community. Like we have some of the best digital fashion designers in our community in the FashionDAO. So I'm very excited about what they're creating, and definitely I recommend folks to check out the FashionDAO and art designers. Some of them are coming from the traditional fashion industry. Some just started, by just being creative. And this is what's so empowering about digital fashion and Web3 fashion, is that you don't necessarily need to go to fashion school or know how to sew or like any of those things. You don't need any fabric. You don't need any factories. You just need your computer to sit and design, and your creativity and imagination. So that's how I got into in this industry, and I think this is so empowering. And the future is so bright because we don't need those specific connections. We don't need those specific, requirements, and we can just create.
I love that. It's like a blank canvas for endless creation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, how do people follow you? So you have a Twitter, so FashionDAO on Twitter.
It's the FashionDAO, and my personal Twitter is Nico Fara _. And on LinkedIn, I'm at Nico Fara. Instagram, Nico Fara _. The FashionDAO is everywhere, same thing, the FashionDAO.
The FashionDAO.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
And what's your advice to people who are just getting into Web3 and deciding if they should start or join a DAO?
Yeah, I think kind of like what I was saying in my NFT NYC talk, one of the best ways to get into the space is joining a DAO. And the reason is you are part of a community that will show you the path, that will handhold you during this education and onboarding, that will, help you and support you with any questions you might have, and during the ups and downs. You will realize you're not alone. You will realize everyone is overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And it's good and it's normal. And it's exciting to be part of this, revolution at this time, at this day and time. And, overall, I think I recommend people to realize what their whys are, recognize that, and then before going to build anything. I think businesses and brands are sometimes rushing into launching something just for the sake of following the trends. But in reality is that, Web3 users understand, recognize who has really been in this space for the ethos of this space, or is here for, cash grab and, not necessarily following the ethos.
Yeah, I love that you're ethos driven. And just a kind of a final note to the listeners, what is a personal quote or motto that you live by that inspires you?
Sarah Blakely is one of my role models, founder of Spanx. She says, the more you experience, the more you can offer. I truly believe in that. That's why I'm all for challenges and solving problems, because that's when I can come back and provide value to others.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that you just want to share your experiences with the world. and that you want to help elevate others. So
Absolutely.
I think definitely kindred spirits here. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your heart,
pleasure.
sharing your talent, and giving us a glimpse of the Fashion DAO. I can't wait to see the Fashion DAO collection sometime. I'm sure that will be birthed soon, and we can have a really fun fashion show runway in the metaverse.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me. It was so nice chatting with you.
So great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on season 1 of The DAO Factor. Follow The DAO Factor on Twitter and YouTube to watch videos of our podcast, where we'll be dropping a new video every week featuring key leaders of DAOs, community builders, and leaders in Web3.